The wad of cash. The rain fell fast and hard as the cop made his rounds on the dreary day. The silence, which had previously been broken only by the pit-pattering of rain falling to the ground, collapsed as a shuffle, a stutter, then a scream was heard. The previously sullen man, nursing a cup of coffee, dropped the styrofoam cup and took off. Heart racing and pounding, he wildly dashed through the streets until he arrived to where the scream had emanated from. The breathless man skidded across the wet pavement, gun drawn, and peered into the alley from which the noise had came. A girl of maybe 19 cowered in the alleyway, her blonde hair obscuring her eyes as a man pointed a gun barrel straight into her face. Another man rummaged through her bags, pocketing anything of value. The man guarding the entrance to the alleyway spotted him. Strover forced a stack of bills into his hand. Then he stated, "You saw nothing," and walked away. The cop hesitated, then strode out of the alleyway and back into the silent streets. As he hurried through the rain, trying not to get completely soaked, he came to the realization that he could finally get a car that had not previously been owned by someone else. Perhaps he could rent a different and better apartment. When he unlocked the door to his apartment, these thoughts made him very pleased. He resolved to act upon those very thoughts in the morning. When sunlight crept through his closed eyelids, he awoke and made himself breakfast. While enjoying the meal, he surveyed the view. So many people owned those buildings, but none of them owns the landscape. A couple weeks later, and a few more wads of cash, he had a new apartment in one of those fancy high-rise buildings. After these events, he was back on patrol, but this time in a more natural area. The sun was just going down, and the snow continued to turn the world into a gigantic snow globe. As he continued on his patrol, he was considering filing a complaint about the lack of winter jackets in their uniform for freezing like today. As these bitter thoughts went through his head, a gruff man approached him and gave him a wad of cash with the usual statement of, "You saw nothing." A few minutes later, a scream erupted from the other end of the street. This must have been what he was paid not to interfere in. He wanted to turn away, but he could not help but watch as a young girl was dragged towards a waiting van. Standing on the bare ground, my head bathed by the blithe air and lifted into infinite space. He was astounded and horrified. That poor girl, she was no more than 12. In that instant, he resolved to step in. He would not stand by and watch while this happened. Time seemed to be going in slow motion as he drew his gun and fired at the kidnappers, taking them down with a few shots, though those shots were not lethal. The little girl sprinted to him and clung on for dear life as he called for other officers to clean up the scene. This was worth way more than any fancy apartments or new, luxurious sports cars. This is why he was a cop, to help people like that little girl out. As he trudged home through the snow, he knew it had been a good day, and he would never accept a payoff again.